You wrapped the stems in aluminum foil. You injected BT with a syringe. You went out at 9 p.m. with a flashlight and checked every stem. You did every single thing the internet told you to do. And by the 4th of July, your zucchini still collapsed. It is not your fault. The war you were told to fight is the wrong war. There are 7 varieties the squash vine borer physically cannot get into, not tolerate, not survive with damage, cannot get into. Solid stems, no hollow core to tunnel through. The larva starves before it finishes its first meal. One of them was grown in the Florida swamps before Europeans arrived and stores for a year on your kitchen counter. Drop your zone below. Georgia and Maryland have completely different borer pressure, and I want to know who I am talking to. Number 1. Tromboncino, the Italian climber that outproduces 4 zucchini plants and leaves the borer starving. If you love zucchini and keep losing it to vine borer, meet the plant you have been looking for. It looks like a green baseball bat with a curl at the end, not a joke. You cut off a young 12-inch Tromboncino, and it feels heavy, like a firm cucumber. You saute it in olive oil the same way you would zucchini. 2 weeks later, this one is still on the vine, another dozen forming. Your neighbor's zucchini plants are already on the compost pile. Here is what actually happens inside the stem. The vine borer larva bores through the stem looking for the hollow core. In your zucchini, it finds it. It tunnels through, and your plant collapses. In a Tromboncino, there is no hollow core. It is solid tissue all the way through. The larva starves before it makes it far. And if the vine does get damaged anywhere along its run, it is already rooted at every leaf node. The plant just keeps going from a new root system. What that actually means for your garden is 1 Tromboncino plant outproduces 4 zucchini plants and outlasts them by 2 months. Here is exactly what to plant. Tromboncino, also sold as zucchetta rampicante or zucchino rampicante at Baker Creek, pine tree, and territorial seed. Zone 4 through 11. Works anywhere. Direct sow this July. Expect young 12-inch summer squash in about 60 days. Mature 2 to 3 foot winter squash by 90 days. Give it a sturdy 6 to 8 foot trellis, spacing 3 to 4 feet at the base. 1 inch of water per week and mulch heavy to keep the roots cool. I planted one at the end of a 4-foot cattle panel arch 2 Julys ago. By September, I had harvested 22 young ones for the kitchen. In October, there were still 5 mature ones curing on the vine. One honest note. Tromboncino needs vertical support. If you try to grow it flat on the ground, the vines still produce, but the fruit gets misshapen, and you lose the charm that makes people plant it. 1 packet of seed, 1 trellis, 100 pounds of squash. That is a big deal. Number 2. Seminole Pumpkin, the Florida native that stores a year on your counter without a fridge. There is a squash that survived hurricanes, drought, and centuries of neglect in the swamps of Florida. Florida's indigenous growers had this figured out long before Europeans arrived, and it still outperforms every squash you can buy at a garden center today. Hardly anyone in the seed catalogs will tell you it exists. The Calabaza and Creek families trained these vines up dead cypress and oak trees at the edge of the Everglades. The pumpkins hung from the branches like ornaments through the fall. They harvested as needed and stored the rest hanging in the rafters through the entire winter. And they did it without pesticides, without a garden center, without a seed catalog. Your backyard fence can do the same thing, minus the alligators. So follow the borer for a second. The vine borer moth lays her eggs at the base of squash stems. Larvae hatch and try to tunnel in. In your Seminole vine, the stem is dense and tough. The larva cannot get far, and if any section of vine does get damaged, every leaf node has already put down its own roots into the soil. The plant is not one plant. It is a colony. In your garden, that means the vine has backups built in. You are not growing one fragile stem. You are seeding a whole network. So here is your move for July. Seminole Pumpkin, available from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, Fedco Seeds, and True Love Seeds. Zone 8 through 11, outdoors. Zone 7 with a bit of season extension. Direct sow this July. Count on 95 to 120 days to mature fruit. Give the vines something vertical to climb, and they will thank you with 20 to 30 fruits per plant, spacing 6 to 10 feet if ground grown. Water deeply once a week. They are drought tolerant once rooted. Cure the fruit in the sun for a week after harvest, then store at room temperature. It will keep for a year. If you live anywhere south of Virginia and you have a fence, a shed, or a scraggly tree the birds sit in, you can grow this. It will use the vertical space you have been ignoring. Fair warning, this has one condition. Seminole pumpkin needs heat. If you are in Zone 6 or colder, the season is too short. Skip to Entry 3. For the money. Nothing else comes close to what this plant delivers. Set and forget, and it feeds you for a year. 10 plants, 2 centuries of proof, 0 pesticides. That is what a proven variety looks like. If you want more picks that actually survive in your climate and save you from replanting 3 times a summer, hit subscribe. New video every week. Same kind of picks that save you from buying the wrong plant twice. Now the next one is the squash most people already have in their pantry but never think to plant themselves. Number 3. Waltham Butternut. The grocery store staple that has been beating vine borers on farms for decades. You have eaten this squash. You have roasted it. You have blended it into soup. You probably bought one at the grocery store last November. What you might not know is that the reason it exists at the grocery store in November is the same reason it can survive in your garden while everything else dies. Waltham Butternut became the commercial standard for a reason. Growers stopped losing entire fields to vine borer when they switched from acorn squash to butternut. It is not luck, it is stem structure. Your backyard has the same pest pressure at smaller scale. The piece the label leaves out is this. Every squash you buy is one of 3 species. Pepo species come with hollow stems. Vine borer heaven. Maxima species run semi-hollow. Moschata species build solid tissue all the way through. Butternut is moschata. Zucchini and acorn are pepo. Same plant family. Completely different vulnerability. I ignored butternut for years because it looked boring. Then I realized boring is exactly what you want when the borer shows up. You will not find that on the seed packet. Look for the word moscata. Ignore the rest. This is where you make the switch. Waltham Butternut from Baker Creek, Fedco, or any U.S. seed catalog. Zone 3 through 11. It grows in almost every state. Direct sow this July. Count on 95 to 110 days to mature fruit. Spacing 4 to 5 feet apart. 1 inch of water per week. Cure in the sun 10 days after harvest, then store at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It will keep 6 months easy, or closer to a year in cool, dry storage. If you have been buying butternut at the store all winter, you have been eating a vine borer-proof squash the whole time. Start growing your own. Reliable, familiar, vine borer-proof. Sometimes the best pick is the one you already know. Number 4. Green-striped Cushaw. The southern heavyweight that gives you 40 pounds of squash from one seed. One plant. 40 to 60 pounds of squash. That is the kind of yield we are talking about with this next one, and hardly anyone north of Tennessee has heard of it. You plant one seed in early July. By late September, you walk out to the garden, and there are 4 or 5 green-striped fruit sprawled across the row, each one the size of a small dog. You harvest what you need for stew and pies. The rest cure on the vine through October, waiting for you. This is the part that changes how you shop for seeds. Cushaw is not a moschata. It sits on a different branch of the squash family altogether. And that is exactly why it matters. The vine borer still cannot get into your plant. The stem is narrow and woody, exactly what the borer avoids. The larva starved the same way it does on Tromboncino. Different species, same defense. Same result, different mechanism. Big deal for anyone who has already lost a zucchini bed. One packet of seed, and you are done. Green-striped Cushaw, sold at Baker Creek, True Love Seeds, and True Leaf Market. Zone 5 through 11, best in 7 and warmer. Direct sow this July. Count on 95 to 105 days to mature fruit. Spacing 6 to 8 feet, because the vines sprawl 15 to 20 feet. Water deeply once every 10 days. They are drought tolerant once rooted. Cure in the sun for 2 weeks after harvest. Storage 3 to 4 months at 50 to 55 degrees. Farmers in Oklahoma and Texas have been growing Cushaw since before Oklahoma was Oklahoma. Your backyard in Arkansas or Alabama has the same climate, same soil pressure, same borer pressure. The variety already exists that solves this. I want to be straight with you on this one. Cushaw takes space. If you have a 4x8 raised bed, this is not your plant. This is for gardeners with actual yard space to give up. I ran the numbers on this one, and the answer was obvious. For pure pounds per plant, no other borer-resistant squash comes close. One seed, 40 pounds of harvest. After it takes root, it asks for almost nothing. Number 5. Calabaza. The Caribbean workhorse the U.S. garden center industry never tells you about. Walk into any Latin grocery store in the summer and you will see enormous green pumpkins piled on a table, sold by the pound in cut wedges. That is calabaza. And nurseries in the U.S. almost never sell the seed. Immigrant grocers know something the U.S. garden center industry does not. Calabaza is the workhorse squash of the Caribbean. If it can survive Florida-level humidity and Puerto Rican summer heat, it can survive your Georgia backyard. Everyone talks about butternut. Nobody mentions calabaza. And it outproduces butternut by a wide margin in the South. If your summers are hot, wet, and long, that is exactly the kind of plant you want. The plan takes 10 minutes. Calabaza, also called Jamaican pumpkin or West Indian pumpkin, from True Love Seeds and Caribbean Garden Seed. Zone 8 through 11, heat obligate. Direct sow this July. Count on 90 to 120 days to mature fruit. Spacing 6 to 10 feet. The vines sprawl 20 feet or more. Water deeply once a week. Cure and store like a butternut. If you live south of Charleston and you have room, try one plant this July. Even if you only get one fruit feeds a family for a week of stews and sides. Immigrant grandmothers have grown this for 100 years. That kind of track record beats any seed catalog description. Number 6, Tatume, the Mexican zucchini that gives you summer squash and winter squash from the same vine. What if the same plant could give you summer squash in July and winter squash in October from the same vine, with the same care, and not lose a single leaf to vine borer? That plant exists, and it has a name. You pick a young Tatume the size of a lime for stir-fry Tuesday night. You pick another one, twice as big, for grilled slices on Saturday. And you leave 2 on the vine to ripen for October. That is one plant doing 3 jobs. Here is the twist with this one. Tatume is technically a pepo, the borer's favorite species, but it does something the other pepos do not. Your vines run 12 feet and root at every leaf node. When the borer takes out one section, the plant is already 3 independent plants downstream. The borer wins the battle. The plant wins the war. Not immune, just stubborn. Stubborn beats fragile every summer. This is the easy swap. Tatume, sold at Baker Creek, Victory seeds, and pine tree garden seeds. Zone 5 through 11. Direct sow this July. Count on 45 to 55 days to your first softball-sized fruits. Spacing 4 to 6 feet, but expect the vines to sprawl. 1 inch of water per week. Harvest young for summer squash texture, or leave a few on the vine to mature by 90 days. Bury a few leaf nodes with soil as the vines run. That gives you the backup roots the borer cannot beat. If you have been growing zucchini for years and losing it to borers, Tatume is the drop-in replacement. Same size fruit, same cooking, no dead plants. I used to recommend zucchini for beginners until I found Tatume. Now I recommend Tatume every time. 1 plant, 2 harvests, 0 borer damage. Neglect is not a mistake here. It is the correct technique. Number 7. Long Island cheese pumpkin. The 1800s heirloom that turns one summer into real pumpkin pie through April. The pumpkin pie your grandmother made was not from a can. And it was not from a jack-o'-lantern. It was from a squash most gardeners today have never seen. The vine borer cannot touch it. For most of the 1800s, this was the pumpkin every farm on Long Island grew for winter cooking. Then canned pumpkin took over the pie market, and the variety almost disappeared. Seed savers pulled it back from the edge in the 1970s. Your backyard can be part of keeping it alive. This is where the whole picture changes. This is another solid stem moscata, so vine borer is a non-issue. But the reason gardeners 100 years ago chose this over other moscata is storage. The rind is thick and cures hard. 2 weeks in the sun, and the fruit becomes a shelf-stable pantry item. No refrigeration, no canning. It sits on a shelf and waits for you, which means 1 summer of growing gives you real pumpkin pie ingredients from October through April. For the last pick, plant Long Island cheese pumpkin from Seed Savers Exchange, Johnny's Selected Seeds, and Baker Creek, Zone 3 through 11. Direct sow this July. Count on 90 to 100 days to mature fruit. Spacing 4 to 6 feet, with vines that run 10 to 15 feet. 1 inch of water per week. Mulch heavy. Harvest when the rind resists your fingernail. Cut with 2 to 3 inches of stem attached. Cure in the sun for 2 weeks. Store at 55 to 65 degrees, and it will keep 4 to 6 months easy, sometimes closer to a year. I harvested 6 Long Island cheese pumpkins on a Saturday morning in October 2 years ago. I cured them on the back porch for 2 weeks. The last one got used in a pie the following March. I stood in the kitchen with the empty rind and thought, this is the whole point. One limit here. Long Island cheese pumpkin needs a real growing season. If your first frost is before mid-October, you are cutting it close from a July planting. Zone 7 and warmer is the sweet spot. Of everything on this list, this is the one I would not skip. Best flavor, longest storage, real history. 1 planting in July. A whole winter of real pumpkin pie. That alone is worth the price of a seed packet. So there are your 7. Tromboncino for zucchini lovers, Seminole Pumpkin for the deep south, Waltham Butternut when you want reliable, green-striped Cushaw when you want scale, Calabaza when you want Caribbean heat tolerance, Tatume when you want 2 harvests from 1 plant, Long Island cheese pumpkin when you want real pumpkin pie in March. Every one of these is on this list because it beats the vine borer without you doing anything about the vine borer. No BT injections, no aluminum foil around the stem, no 9 p.m. stem inspections. You picked the right species. The rest takes care of itself. That is what smart, lazy gardening looks like. Drop your zone in the comments and tell me which one of these you are planting first. I read every single one, and it shapes what I cover next. And think of one person in your life who has been fighting the vine borer war for years. The neighbor who tore out their zucchini bed in June and swore off squash for good. The friend who spent all last summer wrapping stems in foil and lost the plants anyway. Send them this video. Do not even write a message, just send the link. It might save them a summer of frustration.